Yes, my name is PK, and I'm here to talk to you about the power of accounting. To me, the power of accounting is similar to the power of gravity. For example, you cannot expect to jump from a high ground and defy the law of gravity and achieve good results. The results are likely to be obvious. That is, a broken bone or a broken skull. The same can be said with the power of accounting. For anybody who would expect to defy the power of accounting, the results are also dire in the sense that survival will be questioned. So, if you look at the power of accounting, you will find that the whole business world and the corporate world, all of it depends on it. All the information that can be used is information that is processed by the accounting system. For example, if you would want to venture into any business or you want to make any investment, accounting information is a must. You have to use it, you have to apply it to be able to tell whether the investment is a good investment or not, or whether to invest or not. That decision depends on that. If you are looking at managing performance, irrespective of the size, small, medium, or huge, again, you require to employ accounting information into the planning and into the decision of performance. In other words, if at all you also want to undertake activities like determining your tax liability, again, which is a critical aspect of life, again, accounting information will be required. So if you are also looking at managing your liquidity and managing your cash, you also require accounting information to give you a guide, to give you a lead onto what requires to be done. So basically, what we are saying is that the business world cannot exist without the power of accounting or the principles of accounting. So accounting is a language of money. Accounting is a language of wealth. And therefore, it means that everybody is a partaker into this. Everybody requires to understand to some extent of what happens in that regard. So we cannot ignore accounting and survive. And I'm therefore here to invite everybody to join me to decipher accounting. Because the truth of the matter is that the outer layer of accounting is what is complex. Once we crack that outer layer of accounting, what lies underneath will surprise you because it is soft, it is something that requires common logic and common sense to understand. So, if we remove the complexity and the technicality, which I'm here to do for you, you'll find that it becomes very easy to understand the, the remaining part of accounting information because accounting is just based on logic. It's not based on any complex mathematics like physics or other sciences. It is something that anybody can understand. Anybody who can do additions and subtractions and division and multiplication can be able to understand. I want to give you an example to show you the power of accounting, that this power is not a joke. Let's look at a company like Walmart. Walmart is an American supermarket. It's a very huge supermarket. It's got more than 10,000 stores all over the world. Its revenue runs into billions of dollars, more than $500 billion annually. Now, come to ask yourself this question. How do you manage such a huge outfit? How do you go about it? You see? Now, you'll find that if you are to visit physically these stores, if it was possible, you'll find that customers are lined up, customers are buying, customers are going. You also find that there are some deliveries that are happening in and out. And then you also find that there's adequate stock. You also find that the floor is clean and workers are busy. But that cannot be enough. You find that the data that is produced on hourly basis and on monthly and yearly basis is data that can, if at all it was physical, it's data that could could actually touch the sky, could form a mountain which can touch the sky. So how do we go about deciphering and making a meaning of that kind of huge data? That's where accounting comes in. Because through accounting processing power, we're able to crash all that data and structure all that data in an end product that can be meaningful, that can be easy to understand. And you'll find that this accounting system processes, and at the end, we get the financial statements. Now, with the financial statements, we can start now making sense out of what is happening. You can imagine having told you the size of this operation or the size of this outfit. The operation can just be summarized into 2 pages. The whole of that information is processed through a conveyor belt, which is the accounting system, and the end result are financial statements, which can only be just 2 pages. The income statement, the balance sheet, 2 pages are enough to process that size of an organization. Just imagine that. 2 pages. 2 pages is what we end up with, looking at the size of this particular organization. So you can see the power of accounting. You can see how strong accounting is. It processes, it condenses, it structures. Then, after it structures, we can now start reading and understanding how the performance has been. Now, another question that I may pose is this: when you see the financial statements, when they are read before you, what do you make out of it? I may want to contend that you just see numbers that have got no meaning, meaningless numbers, which are likely to be very boring and very lengthy numbers. Those are billions and hundreds of billions and the like. So those numbers are not likely to make sense to you. But now, why am I inviting you into this journey? It's because for me, when I see the financial statements, I don't just see numbers. No. I see reality. I see execution. I see decisions. I see business models. I see instances of creative accounting. I see fraud. I see opportunities just by looking at those numbers. Because those numbers are not just idle numbers. Those numbers are real. Those numbers stand for what has already happened. So those numbers are like a coded language, whereby if at all you break them down, you can be able to tell every little bit about that particular entity. For example, let's look at these primary financial statements, mainly the income statement and the balance sheet. When I look at an income statement, for argument's sake, using my imagination, I look at this financial statement. At the top is revenue. That's the top line. At the bottom is profit, is the bottom line. Now, in between are the drivers that make that revenue to happen, which are likely to be the overheads, or which are obviously the overheads that drives that revenue to be achieved. And then, when I start interpreting, or when I start analyzing, I'm likely to be able to tell that, logically speaking, why are we spending so much proportion of our revenue on some items like the wage bill? Why is the wage bill proportion so high, or ratio so high as compared to our revenue? Again, there's a question there. Do we have so many people that are chasing after very little activity? Are we paying too much? Yeah, those questions can be asked. And after asking those questions, we can be able to come up with strategies to deal with them. Why do we Why would we have a wage bill which is probably 70% of the revenue? That means that our business is not likely to be sustainable over the long haul. So we need to look for other strategies. Probably how are we hiring our people? Should we hire them on part-time basis? Should we hire them on permanent basis, which now becomes a fixed cost? That's just one example. Another thing that you can look at the travel, for example. Again, why is our travel bill so high? Why are people having meetings so far from our operation, if that is the reason? What are these people going out to do there for us to be able to incur this huge travel bill? Again, we can start thinking on how to leverage on other platforms, like maybe we can end up using some virtual way of making people to meet, as an example, so that we can be able to cut down that particular bill. Look at other bills like petrol. Why are we spending so much as if we are a logistic company, yet we are not a logistic company, for example? What's going wrong? Are we spending for other, is the expenditure, private expenditure, ending up being brought in to the business for the business to foot the bill? Again, we can ask those kind of questions. Again, using the proportionalities, we are likely to ask ourselves, back to the wage bill, do we have ghost workers? Why is it so heavy? Or is there a fraud that's being perpetrated in this process? You can look to ask yourself such kind of questions. But then the question is that, where are you getting all this information? You've not even been to the entity physically or to the organization physically to actually see. Just from the numbers are giving feedback, and therefore the numbers are talking, and the numbers, they always talk. Going to the balance sheet again, you can ask yourself critical questions. We are making this much revenue, but yet we have invested this much in terms of our assets. So are we in a position, are we able to utilize our assets in an efficient manner? Again, that question can be asked. Why have so much assets that are chasing after so little revenue? Do we still need to keep all these assets? Do we need to dispose some of the assets to reduce our finances? Is a question that you can ask. Again, look at the liquidity. Why are we having so much cash that is idle? Why can't we invest it like into the money markets, whereby it can earn us some interest as we wait for the time that we need it? Because remember again, cash is always affected by one parasite that is called the inflation. Inflation is a parasite that eats on any idle cash. So those questions you can ask them just by reading the financial statements. On the other hand, let's look at the borrowing. Why are we borrowing so much? Why is the proportion of borrowing against our capital so high? Why have we borrowed 90%? We are financing our entity at 90% debt. How sustainable is that? Again, we can start asking ourselves the right strategies to employ so that we can ensure that we don't end up in a financial distress just by looking at the numbers. The same numbers that seem that we're just sitting and not having any meaning are the same numbers we are using to make critical decisions that will help us to be able to move forward and to be able to do the right things. Now, having said that, I would want to invite you to come with me so that we can be able to break down these numbers to its details, such that you can be able to see how to run your entities. So, having said that, I'm PK and I'm your accounting nitty-gritty specialist. And for me, I'm a corporate trainer and I've trained with many organizations. I've trained for many organizations, and my main training comes when I'm dealing with the audit committees. Because when it comes to the audit committees, there's a question that I normally ask. When you are engaged to become a committee member, the question that arises is that where do you start? You are managing from the top. How do you understand? How to become effective in those type of management? So I get excited when I'm talking about that. The other area that I'm happy to facilitate on is on how to develop and build a robust risk and practical risk register. Again, that's one area that is very, very important. You see? So, as for me, I am in this platform to carry you through so that we can see how the financial statements are made. So, as we move forward, I'll have a session whereby I'll show you the topics that we have to go through before we can build the financial statements. And after building the financial statements, the most important part is on interpreting them to be able to understand the meaning of those numbers. And like I've said, those numbers are real and those numbers stand for execution, stands for strategy. They're not just numbers that have got no effect. They are numbers that shows what has to be done or what requires to be corrected. Having said that, I expect to see you in the next video. Thank you.